Hi, this is Karl-James Langford. This is channel 012-1975. It's the 13th of February, it's a Friday. Today we're going to look at the Gaunche mummies, and we've got a load of slides coming up, so we're going to get onto them straight away. It's been a fairly okay day today. My health is starting to get there, and I went and took some of my students out on a walk, and it turned out to be an absolutely beautiful day. Other than that, I've just been plodding along, so let's look at the Gaunche mummies, and let me know what you think, folks. So here we go. We're looking at a map of the Europe/African coast, and we can see the little islands of the Canaries where our little adventure today begins. Here's the group of the Canary Islands. Number of large islands off the coast of northwest Africa, off the coast of Morocco, and it's home to a very diverse culture. This is one of our first mummies today. The Gaunche were civilization on these islands in the Canaries, and they dominated these islands for maybe up to 2,000 years. We now believe that the Gaunche actually came from North Africa, were descended from the Berbers, and they were to be the subject of ridicule, and now today the subject of civilization that we can very much respect. This body itself is wrapped in skins of the sheep or goat breeds that were kept by the Gaunche on the island archipelago of the Canaries. Unfortunately, there are around 20 of these Gaunche mummies left on the Canary Islands. At one stage there were maybe up to about 100,000 mummies on the island, plus across the world there's probably no more than about 100 Gaunche mummies in existence. Gaunche mummies, in comparison with Egyptian mummies, there's probably one Gaunche mummy to every million Egyptian mummies. This is how rare the Gaunche mummies are. They were ground down to create mammaria, which is a sort of little powder ground down from these very at the point of preservation, very desiccated. Could be ground into a powder quite rapidly, and mammaria could actually be used to solve stomach pains, or maybe used as an aphrodisiac. Another one of the examples, in the main museum in Tenerife, they've got most of the mummies on display. They were desiccated, they were placed out in the open air, and the sun was so hot and intense that when desiccated, the average weight of the body, after all the innards had been taken out, were about 7 pounds, and then they were wrapped in skins and then preserved. Skull of one of these fellows. Males and females were buried alike, mummified. Others, individuals we found, didn't wish to be mummified. It was a culture spread across these islands, very intense at one stage. We believe that their culture was started to get to a height about 1,000 years BC, and still functioning as a culture up to about 1,500 years AD, when they become relatively wiped out and became extinct due to the introduction of the Spanish and them conquering the islands. More of them in the cabinets. Why do we turn to Heinrich Himmler in this next slide? Simply because the organisation that established on the 1st of July 1935 was the Ahnenerbe, which was to research the racial purity of the Aryan race, believed to have originated from the north 10,000 years ago and spread around the earth as an advanced culture and civilization. He wished to look at reports of blonde-headed women with fair skin, very light eyes, being found on the islands by Arabic explorers in the 1100s, and the information written down. The Anunnaki never ever went to the island of the Canaries to look at these reports, but I'm sure it would have given Heinrich in his own mind and the Anunnaki some credence to advance the hypothesis that there was once a true Aryan race. However, the Third Reich would have waited 60 odd years. They would have realised that culture and civilization did come from the Norse, i.e. the Orkney Islands, where we've got the first stone circles, first pottery and so on. But this is not to subject us to ideas that there was a master race at one stage, just how things develop, determined by the environment and spread to other parts of the world. This is one of the individuals on the Tibetan expedition from the Anunnaki anthropological research to find this Aryan race in modern day populations. Symbol of the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki amazingly up in Antarctica doing more research to find this true Aryan race, which never ever got them to the Canary Islands, but may have. If Franco would have given the Germans permission, they would have landed there to do this research. The Anunnaki would have come across pottery like this. They didn't. The Gaunches themselves did produce pottery that could be seen in cultural content elsewhere in the world. Basically, the adaptation to make pottery like this in locality with no other links and impacts from other societies. In other words, post-processionalist archaeology. The Gaunches themselves were said to have just lived in crude caves, making pottery and just dancing around naked and in occasional skins. This is the image that's painted by people on the Canaries of the Gaunches. This is probably completely untrue. Some of them did live in caves, some of them did live out in the open. Those that did live in the cave lived with their dead alongside them, but they still used pottery, they still looked after animals, they still ground corn, they still were a fairly advanced civilization. It's said that they had numeracy and writing, so this does not portray them in a good light. They lived in caves like these, some of them, where they were used for storage as well. The caves would have offered them protection against the heat, and as we know that the cave temperatures range between 11 and 12 degrees C, and in the conditions on these isolated islands, it would have been very hot in the summer. So to have slept in these caves at night and to kept your animals and your grain and everything secure in these caves seems a good deal to me today. We don't call people in France or England and elsewhere who live in caves today backwards, primitive people. We call them sensible. It's just that people in caves have always seemed to be backwards people, and I'm not. One of the Gaunches mummies, one of the very few on the islands. This obviously got dark hair, Berber hair colouring, but obviously there are examples where they would have been blonde, and some say reddish hair. People of the Canaries living in caves up until the 1920s, 1930s doesn't mean to say that they're backwards. Gaunches mummy. Note the incised markings in the back of the cave. Lots of mummies were found on backings, wooden backings, bound to them with various sinew after the skins had been placed on the mummified bodies. Humble and jumble of the caves. Unfortunately, lots of other archaeology has been destroyed. Find in 1933 brought to light up to 80 mummies in Tenerife. Unfortunately, the robbers got to the site before it could be properly interpreted, losing us valuable data. In Another reason why you may live in these caves. Look how beautiful they are. Another portrayal of the Gaunche people. A little bit more closer, but still again they do look a little bit backwards there, but we're getting closer to how they may have looked and lived. They had these spiral designs on the rock, which you can see from the Nazca peoples of South America, all the way through to the Picts, all the way through to the Irish, people of Central European type, over to Greece, all the way across the world. We're seeing these spirals designs on rock. Doesn't mean to say they were linked, it was to say that this is how humans would broadcast. Pottery, they produced pottery. Gaunche pottery is very rare today, but there would have been large amounts of this pottery available to view on the island not so many years ago, but it's just been taken away and broken and sold. Rounded bottoms so that you could sit them up properly. You could use them for cooking, heating on the fire and so on. Beautiful figure. Everybody that I've shown this figure to, this beautiful ceramic figure, have agreed with me. This could have been from an age in the 1930s where people were producing this type of art, but this figure itself is from the period of the Gaunche, over 15,000 years ago. Oh, 15,000 years ago. 1,500 years ago, sorry folks. Geometric designs in cave on these islands. Just because it's cave painting doesn't mean to say that these people are backwards. It was just their way of preserving their art form, and this is the stuff that's preserved. Anything else on the skins would have faded and been lost by now, but this is stuff that remains in caves up to 2,000 years old, maybe up to 3,000 years old. You say that some of the stones indicate that there's some indication of numeracy on these stones still to be properly researched. Landscape today. Landscape back then was that there were large numbers of animal pastorally grazing, and there would have been arable land as well for planting crops. But obviously things change. So showing some of the cave systems in Lemuria. Many caves used for various purposes as discussed. Why have we got a Mayan temple? Well, some believe that the Gaunche actually constructed these Mayan temples on the islands, Gaunche temples. Now, these were, according to all reports, discovered by Thor Heyerdahl in the 1950s. Some argue whether they're genuine or not. Others argue that they are. And that in some of these upland areas it was natural terracing to grow crops. But the jury is out. More images of these temples on the Canaries. Look up to the ranges, and obviously may link us together with other civilizations in our minds, but there was no clear links. Thor Heyerdahl argued that peoples from Central America settled on the Canary Islands, not peoples from North Africa, displaced by the desertification of North Africa far ago as 8,000 years ago. More images of these temple-like structures on the Canaries, but this is more contemporary. A spiral design laid out with rocks in one of the mountainous areas of the Canaries. You could put a link in your mind with the Nazca of South America from Peru, but there isn't. This is their way of determining and their way of using time to express themselves rather than anything else more complicated. More incised marks in stone by the Gaunche, giving you an idea of what the landscape would have looked like. Some parts of Canary still look like this today. Again, showing the proportion of Egypt and Africa with the Canaries. Thank you very much for looking at these images today, and hopefully you've understood a little bit more about Gaunche civilization. Thank you very much. Right, thanks for watching my video about the Gaunche mummies, and hopefully it's been entertaining, and hopefully you've all learned something. One thing that I will say about the Gaunche mummies at the Canary Islands is that most of the people that I've offered the information to in my classes this week knew nothing about them before, and hopefully if you knew something or you knew nothing, then you've learned something today. Thank you very much. Looking forward to entertaining you more in a video log in the very near future. Bye.